Okay, so earlier you were asked to look at some fonts and you are picking either the first initial of your first name or the first initial of your last name. And I kind of came up with 3 quick sketches and I'm gonna pick the best one to do on my final project. So you got a piece of drawing paper and on the back bottom right-hand drawing paper, write your first and last name, and then do a parentheses and write your period, whatever class period you're in, so that we kind of know who these all belong to. All right, you're gonna need a ruler and you're gonna need a pencil. So the very first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a little border all the way around my paper. And I'm gonna do that by lining the ruler up with the very edge of the paper and doing a super light pencil line. You're gonna erase this in the end, but this is gonna make a little frame around your paper. It ends up looking nicer and neater. Also, when we do art contests, we mat your artwork, and this kind of gives us something to use for matting. So a lot of projects, you'll do a frame. We're not gonna measure this one this time. We're gonna keep it simple. We're just gonna make it the width of the ruler. And again, I'm drawing lightly because you're gonna eventually erase this. Go all the way around. I'm making sure my ruler is lined up with the edge of the paper. All right, so I now have this little light frame. Okay. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be drawing my A inside this small inner rectangle. And the rule is you want it to touch about 2 to 3 sides. I also am going to bold my letters. So if you look here right now, my letter is just lines. I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna bold it so that it's solid, like that. So I'm gonna take my paper, and if you need to use the ruler to draw your letter, you can. I'm gonna have my A come up and hit here, and I want that line to be straight, so I'm gonna kind of eyeball it with my ruler, like this. So when you're doing designs like this on your paper, you wanna think about it, everything kind of really being nice and neat. You are graded on something called craftsmanship. Craftsmanship is how neat and clean your drawing looks. So I have my design touching the top, it's touching down here, and it's also touching the left side of my paper. So I'm gonna make it about that wide. Rule on wideness, no more than 1 inch wide. All right, make that one, I'm gonna eyeball, I'm gonna make this one kind of the same. Whoop, didn't go all the way up. I'm gonna fix that. Go back, fix this. Again, take your time. Make it look really nice and neat so your final product is nice, neat, and clean. All right, and then that angle going through here. And again, practicing drawing light is a good skill to have. Oh, and I think I'm gonna make that angled down like that. So it ends up looking like this. So I've got my A. All right, you wanna make sure your letter design touches at least 3 sides of your paper, which it does. You're not gonna draw anything coming out of this interior rectangle. So this area outside here, that's gonna be nice, clean, and white. If you wanna erase your little marks that you made, kind of mentally tell yourself, don't draw anything in this area, okay? So you watched a video on Zentangles and you followed along and you made 6 of them. You are going to do some letter designs in the negative space of your project. So when we talk about space, space can either be positive space. If you guys see this A is taking up my positive space. And then the space all around it is negative. It's just empty. Same thing for this middle part of the A. So the rules of this assignment are, and it's on the following slide, is that you have to use at least 20 patterns. And so I usually do mine in pencil first. That way I can decide if I like them, and then I go back over it with my ultra fine Sharpie. But you can break up the space if you want, but your patterns are going to be made out of repetition with lines. So here's a pattern. And notice that I'm stopping as soon as I get to the edge of my A. You are going to fill up all the negative space with repetition of line. Repetition is a principle of design, and line is an element of art. Line is a path of a moving point. So I'm kind of just filling up that little space right there. You can do curvy lines. And I like to go through and add things onto these to make them look more interesting. That way they're just not waves. Oh, that looks cute. Looks like a mattress button. Here's another one. And if you get stuck and you can't think of any patterns, go back and incorporate some of the ones that you did off that YouTube. Go back and look online at just Zentangle patterns. They have lots of different cool, but you have to include at least 20. So after you draw your entire design in pencil, you're going to go over your pencil lines in Sharpie. Do not go over this line and the edges of your letter. If you have the pattern going right up next to the edges of your letter, when you go to erase it, so you guys can see kind of what it looks like. Do you see how it defines the edge where the lines stop? It ends up looking super cool like that. I'm gonna pause the video and then I will go get an example.